So the servers are back online earlier than expected for Throne and Liberty, and we have the new update. The first thing I want to check out is that new Calanthea Equipment Extract Selection Chest. And then also, we do indeed have the next season of Tower of Greed, so all your progress has been reset, but there's all these new rewards you can obtain, although you probably don't need to do them at all as they've moved the main rewards to other sources. Checking the skills, they do not appear to have added that healing overload as we could see on the Korean servers. In terms of the Lucent shop, there are no new skins. However, the Stormcaller weapons and that outfit have made a return, the Ornate Coin shop is about to reset, and the double Lucent packs are limited time and will be going away this Saturday. Despite them not saying it here, but they do state limited time on the notice board. And towards the end, we'll go through some weekly reminders. So first, let's have a look at that new trait selection chest. Is it truly a selection chest, or do you only get a choice of the gear piece you want, and then is it a random roll from there? So I'll go select my wand, we'll use this, and we obtain critical hit chance. So it was a random chance on which exact trait we got. Now this should, over the long term, bring down the prices of these traits. However, as of the double Lucent packs, people have been buying up traits which are usually more expensive than they are willing to pay, just because, again, they get double the amount of Lucent for their money. So look at the amount of traits missing. But yeah, the question is, should you be spending 30 entropy shards on this? And the answer I can give is, yeah. The only cautionary thing would be to maybe save some entropy shards for when the brooch comes out. Possibly we'll want to switch to it, but there's no guarantees. And even just saving some entropy shards to buy some to be able to sell the traits could be worth more than buying that trait pack. But again, no guarantees. I have more than enough excess equipment I could dissolve with some trash traits, all this health regen, if I want to get some quick entropy shards. But here's hoping the prices on, say, wisdom for the wand and heavy attack for the ring will go down. I would not pay much Lucents to max them out, they're just tiny stat boosts. Personally, I'd be willing to pay about 1,000 per trait, but not much more. We did have maintenance, so we do have some ornate coins, but that maintenance was pretty short, only 2 hours, so we just get 200. It is the 26th of February, so the shop should reset as soon as we jump into March, so 2 days left. So make sure you're spending those ornate coins before we get the restock. And yes, just as a reminder, these double Lucent packs will be gone this coming Saturday. They have stated this on Twitter a few days ago, and also in our patch notes just here. I have seen player reports that Xbox players can only purchase these packs once. Perhaps contact customer support, but otherwise make sure to check your store pages. Personally, I will not be buying these. I have no real need to, and I still fully intend to remain free to play in this game, mainly to prove a point that it is possible. You can be fully free to play and have a maxed out character. Of course, you need to have had put in the playtime hours. I have about 2,500 by now, although quite a bunch of it is AFK, testing and recording videos. In terms of skill changes, we did get quite a few with this update, particularly tanks getting a heavy nerf, along with heal cuts becoming much stronger as they can no longer be mitigated by weakened resistance. Although bow gets the unique feature of being able to actually cleanse those heal cuts. You can check the patch notes and all those changes are listed here, and I went through them in previous videos multiple times, but they largely just affect PvP balancing. You have heard me complain multiple times how the devs refuse to acknowledge the curse explosion bug on those field bosses. But yes, in terms of overall PvE balancing, it's pretty rough right now for most Neely users. They have definitely been falling behind in damage, and the devs could well do at looking at PvE balancing overall. Do be aware, however, there was that big nerf to the effective exploit of Tevant orb stacking, so that will heavily influence the top endgame groups who were simply stacking Tevin orbs and then any class that can make the most of Curse Explosion. And again, in field bosses, Curse Explosions are still bugged, so Crucifix is pretty much the best in terms of the damage within there. And in other PvE content, that's only closely matched when you have a Tevin orb on the boss with classes like Invocator, Fury, Oracle, and potentially Darkblighter. So pretty much, if you're not using a wand or an orb in PvE right now, your damage is going to be behind. And that still remains true even though the Tevin orb gets a massive nerf. I would say Ravager is pretty close, like Dagger did get some buffs and so did Greatsword, and combined they put it on a fairly decent level, but other classes like Shadow Dancer, Scorpion are just massively behind, and they could absolutely do with some improvements. Even classes like Infiltrator, Liberator are all way behind in PvE damage compared to what it used to be. Again, a big influence because Orb was introduced, allowing Crucifix to dominate, and then Tevin Orb just significantly boosts Wand. Even though the stacking was fixed, still a 60% boost on nearly overall damage is massive to all those Wand classes. The reason why Orb has kind of made a comeback, particularly with Crucifix, is because of the new addition of this orb. It allows crazy amounts of damage with Void Slash, and the price reflects that. But other than the ongoing PvP balance changes we've been getting over the past months actually, they haven't really touched PvE at all. And we won't be getting any new content until we move to April the 2nd. 2 new co-op dungeons, new Battlegrounds map, and a new brooch accessory. But we do have in 2 weeks, March the 12th, the big server merges. This will mainly just impact PvP gameplay, like your Castle Siege, Boonstones, Riftstones, and the world bosses. Speaking of those world bosses, we do have double the amount of arch bosses now for a few weeks. But this simply allows you to just attend the arch boss you want, so we now have every single one available during the time slots. This will probably balance out a little bit the prices on the higher end arch boss weapons, like Tevint particularly, as now you'll be able to attend twice as many Tevints per week. But in the overall scheme of things, it's not like we're actually getting more arch boss events to be able to attend, so it's unlikely to affect the arch boss prices as a whole, not like an announcement of tier 4 arch bosses would, but that's probably not happening till the summer. However, they did make some reward updates, like Tower of Greed has been changed with the Season 2 version, but the devs have ultimately said, don't bother with the content if you don't want to. We've made the rewards worse, so you feel less pressured to actually have to do it. They simply added some new gear chests to help newer players, some armor pieces, and some accessories. If you're looking for those Relic Analysis crystals, look no further than the trials. The accumulated point rewards, you complete all of them and you will get 40 per week. For some extra, you can grind Nebula and Battlegrounds and Arena. They did recently post another PvP roundtable with these 3 creators. I did watch the whole thing, but it was just a lot of arguing between the creators, with Lucky Black Cat trying to be the reasonable one. So I'm really not sure what's going to come of that, other than potentially the suggestion to add a reduction to how often you can receive impactful healing, which leads us to that healing overload that they were going to add to the healing skills. We saw that already on the Korean server, but they have since removed it from the tooltips, and it's very likely something that they're going to implement to prevent you from being able to continually spam heals on people, particularly shields. So you can't keep reapplying the shields all the time at full effect. Something like heal overload would basically mean the more times you apply heals, the lower effect they would have. So you'd be incentivized to pace out those healing skills. And even if you were in a situation where you wanted to spam the heals to, say, save somebody's life, you just wouldn't really be able to. You would need your target to disengage from the fight, stop taking all that damage, take a breather before you can properly start healing them again. but it's all a work in progress. As Tico mentioned, they are unsure exactly what to do, and they ultimately should just nerf PvP damage as a whole, slow down the fights a little bit, but yes, that does also mean slowing down the healing, because if you reduce the damage and you don't reduce the healing, well, nobody's going to die. And they do have PvP stats in the game. You can check right here. They have a stat of PvP damage increase and PvP damage received. Simply buff up this PvP damage received to like 50%, and then of course implement your fix that reduces how often you can spam heals and shields. But PvP balancing is an absolute nightmare. Balancing this game as a whole is a nightmare. You have 36 classes across the 9 different weapons. There's never ever going to be true balance in this game like a proper class-based game. There are always going to be a top few weapon combos within a current meta. That's just how it's going to be. There's just no way they can balance everything. You can state how melee sucks in PvE, but then you can jump into PvP and you can say how it dominates there. You could state how healing one bow sucks in PvP, but you can also say it's a necessity for PvE. So as long as a weapon has a place in the game on some build or other, the devs will probably be content enough. Unless there's so much outcry from the community, they feel they need to do something. And as long as one weapon doesn't dominate so much above the others, again, the devs will probably be content with the balance. But finally, some weekly reminders. Visit your Sundries merchant, get those contract scrolls, do your resistance contracts, whether that's cooking ones or these, get those contract coins. You can also get some from amateur expeditions now, grab those extract stones from there at least, do your guild raids, grab the conversion stones here, attend those arch bosses and potentially the other field bosses too. You'll get resistance medals you can spend here. You can go to Farm Nebula, get those Nebula stones. You can now purchase 40 Relic Analysis crystals, but you'd only do that if you get enough to also purchase the unlock stones. I would always prioritize the unlock stones over those Relic Analysis crystals. Similarly, you could do Battlegrounds. If your runes aren't maxed out, I would always take those. And otherwise, there are the Relic Analysis crystals you can get here, another 40. But you can also get 40 through the Dimensional Trials now, which is a great addition. Try and do those for the points and accumulate all these rewards. Spending your currencies, opening the chests. Also doing your random normal queue to spend the tier 1 currency, getting these as well. Do your raid to get the raid drops, along with those entropy shards and chaos prisms, and then your Hall of Illusion, Guild of Infinity, and Tejal's Tower. There is of course a bunch of other content you can do if you're into the PvP and the GVGs, and that's listed here. So plenty to do in the game. It just gets a bit repetitive once you've done it for so long, and if you have your character maxed out, there just really isn't much incentive to continue. But with that said, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys around.